No two users are alike. Photoshop can be customized to suit a wide variety of needs. Let's find out how. Photoshop has dozens of preferences settings, but fortunately, most of them can be left at their default values. Let's take a look at the ones you should consider changing to make it easier to follow along in upcoming lessons. To get to Preferences, we're going to go up to the Edit menu, scroll all the way down to the bottom where we see Preferences. I'll point out this is on a Windows machine. If you're using a Mac, you're going to find the Preferences menu located underneath the Photoshop menu. In Preferences, we're going to start with General. Now, the very first thing I would like for you to do here is go up to the Use Shift key for tool switch and turn it off, uncheck it. With this disabled, we're going to be able to move quickly from one tool to the next using keyboard shortcuts without having to invoke the Shift key, a huge time saver. While we're here, let's turn off Enable Flick Panning as well. This is an interesting little piece of eye candy, but it's far from essential, and quite frankly, if you've never seen it before, it takes a little bit of getting used to, so we won't use that. Let's go down now to Interface. I would like for you to turn off the Show Tooltips box. What's a tooltip? Well, there you see it. It shows up in yellow and it shows up over menu items and tools, giving you little hints and tips about what they do. But who needs tooltips? You've got me. So let's turn that off. We'll move down to Performance. And I just want to verify a couple of things here. Under Memory Usage, I just want you to make sure that this arrow is not dragged all the way over to the right. Now that Photoshop has 64-bit versions for both the PC and Mac, it is possible to drag it all the way to the right and use up every last ounce of memory on your system. But for our purposes, we really want to be somewhere in the 60 to 70% range. So just verify that you're somewhere along there. Wouldn't go past 70% for our uses. That'll be fine. Down here under GPU settings, we've got an Enable OpenGL drawing option. Sounds geeky, but feel free to check it. This will give us access to some visual interface enhancements. Now, if it's grayed out, that means your video card doesn't support this feature, but don't despair. This functionality is nice, but not crucial. I'll give you a heads up whenever I show features that require an OpenGL compatible video card. Finally, let's go down to cursors. Now, I just want to verify a couple of things. Make sure that under painting cursors, you've got it set to normal brush tip. And then, to the right under Other Cursors, please set it to Standard. With these two settings, we'll guarantee that we are looking at the same thing on my screen and your screen once we start painting and brushing and all that other cool stuff. And that's it. Our preferences are set up and we're ready to move on. The color settings in Photoshop are often overlooked, but with just a few changes to the defaults, we can avoid color issues down the road. We're going to go back to our old friend, the Edit menu. Scroll down to Color Settings. Note that to the right of Color Settings, we've got a keyboard shortcut command of Shift-Control-K on a Windows machine, Shift-Command-K on a Mac. This is the keyboard shortcut that you can use to directly invoke the Color Settings dialog. So as you're reaching up and pulling down menus, keep an eye on the keyboard shortcut commands where available, and if you find yourself going to the same menu numerous times, you can start using that keyboard shortcut. It saves a ton of time. Here we are in Color Settings. I want to start with a preset, North America General Purpose 2. If you don't see that in this pull down, simply click, open it up, and select North America General Purpose 2. We're just going to make a couple of changes. For working spaces under RGB, we're going to set it to Adobe RGB 1998, a much bigger color space than sRGB. For gray, we're going to use Gray Gamma 2.2, a very common working space for grayscale images. And color management policies, these all look great at Preserve Embedded Profiles. What we are going to do is check the Missing Profiles Ask When Opening box. If we ever get an image that does not have a profile, doesn't have Adobe RGB 1998, Gray Gamma 2.2, sRGB, what have you, it's good for us to know about that because then we're going to have to make a couple of decisions about how to handle that image. Now, under Settings at the top, since we've made some changes, notice that it says Custom. And if you don't want to have to remember these settings and keep reapplying them in case they get messed up, you can simply go to this Save button, and we'll click Save, give your file a name. We could call this Total Training, for example. Photoshop has already set this up to save in a special settings folder so it knows where to look for it, and simply hit the Save button and you've got this custom color settings saved that you can reuse anytime you need it. For now we're going to just hit Cancel, but we are going to hit OK so that we can continue working with these settings. It's very easy to take Photoshop from its off-the-shelf appearance to a customized setup that fits your own specific needs. In Chapter 1, we took our first brief look at workspaces. Now we'll get to customize our own. Before we do that, however, it's time to go back to our old friend, the Edit menu. Scroll down to Menus. Let's open this up. This dialog box allows us to do something very interesting. If I open up the File menu here, and you can see below File is all of the menu items that are listed in Photoshop. If I open up File, we see these visibility. See New and we will not see Open. The first menu item that we will see is Browse in Bridge. Photoshop ships with a lot of menu items. Now, if there are a lot of items that you feel you're never ever going to use and you want to declutter and compact things a little bit, you can simply come up here into Menus and turn things off. You can always come back and turn them on, so you're not throwing them out of the program, you're just hiding them. Let's take a look now at keyboard shortcuts, because here's where you can really do something powerful. Again, we've got a lot of our menu commands here. I'll open up File. In an earlier lesson, I talked about the importance of using keyboard shortcuts. Well, here they all are listed. For example, the keyboard shortcut for New is Control-N on the PC, Command-N on the Mac. I can go and click on this, and if I'm not happy with that keyboard shortcut, I could change it. I could change it to any key combination that I want. If there's an item in this list that does not have a keyboard shortcut, such as, let's say, Open a Smart Object, I can click in this empty area. It gives me a box, and I can type in my own keyboard shortcut. I'll type in here, let's see, Control/ on the PC. Now on a Mac, you'd have to include the Command key for menu items, so maybe Command Control/ would work. Hit the Add Shortcut button, and voila! Open a Smart Object now has a custom keyboard shortcut that I've created. And again, you can do this for any menu item in Photoshop. You can either alter the existing shortcuts or add a shortcut to an item that doesn't have one. I'm going to go up and click Cancel, because for right now we're going to leave keyboard shortcuts in menus the way that they are standard shipping in Photoshop. So I'm going to click outside this shortcut box, then hit Cancel, and now we're ready to dig into our workspace. Back in Chapter 1, we had set up in the Essentials workspace, and I'd just like for you to verify that you're still there. Make sure that Essentials is your chosen workspace. We're going to start from here, but we are going to make some changes to the neighborhood. First thing that I'm going to do is go down here in these panels. I'm going to get rid of the Swatches panel. I'm going to click, drag that out. Hit the X button to delete it. I'm going to do the same for the Brush Presets panel. Drag that out and delete it. I'm going to close up a little bit of space here with the Navigator and Info, so our layers, channels, paths can have a lot more space down at the bottom. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take Paths, click, drag that out. To undock it, I'm going to get rid of that. What I'm going to do now is go up to the Window menu, and I'm going to choose Histogram. I want to add a histogram. It's bundled by default with Actions. I don't want Actions, so I'm going to click on Actions, pull that tab out, and delete that. I am going to now go and add adjustments so that we can see our adjustment layers. Adjustments is linked with masks by default. For now, I'm going to delink those, so take masks, click that out, and hit the X key. Now, I don't want Mini Bridge and I don't want the History panel in here, so I'm going to click on this double dotted horizontal line, drag that out, hit the X, close those two. Now, we've freed up a little bit of space, but we've got a lot more room in layers and channels. We've still kept Navigator and Info, but now we've got Histogram and Adjustments, and those are going to come in handy over the next couple of chapters. Keep in mind, if we go back and look at our Workspace switcher, it still says Essentials. The Workspace switcher actually auto-saves or auto-updates whenever you make a change. So right now, Photoshop is letting us call this workspace Essentials. What we want to do, though, is create a brand new workspace. So we're going to click on this double arrow, go down near the bottom where it says New Workspace. We're going to name it. Let's call this TT for Total Training Demo. So I'm going to go TT and Demo. Notice under the Capture box, it gives us the option to save any custom keyboard shortcuts or menu alterations that we've made. Now, we haven't actually made any, so we can leave those unchecked, but if you do make changes to those, you can save those with the workspace. We're just going to hit the Save button now, and we now have a workspace called TT Demo. I'm going to drag this double vertical line out for a second just so we can take a look at a couple of the workspaces, because here's something that's important to remember. We said earlier that the workspaces are working in an autosave function. So if we choose TT Demo here, and we go back and choose Essentials, those workspaces look the same. We had modified Essentials and then created a new workspace. What we want to do now, so that we don't get confused between these two, is we want to click on Essentials. I'm going to right click on the PC, control click on the Mac on the word Essentials, and I'm going to reset Essentials. This will take it back to its factory defaults. So now we have the Essentials that we started with, and if I click back on TT Demo, this is the workspace that we're going to be using in the next couple of chapters. Photoshop power users swear by keyboard shortcuts and rarely, if ever, visit a menu. Even at this stage of your Photoshop experience, it pays to learn a few of the basic shortcuts. So let's go up to the File menu, and these are going to be system-wide shortcuts that are going to work in any program you're using. For New, on the PC, it's Control-N. On the Mac, it's Command-N. Open, as in open a file, Control-O on the PC, Command-O on the Mac. Close, very important. Instead of clicking on that little small